All right, everybody, how you doing today? We're going to be getting started here in a few minutes. I've been explaining in the chat how this is going to work, but I will explain it again before we get into the first bracket, which is going to be North and South America. So I'll try to answer questions as best I can as we are waiting, because what we're going to do is this. There are going to be 4 brackets. This is March Madness style, so if you're not familiar with what March Madness is, every year this time of year, here in the U.S., our college basketball teams are in a tournament, and there's close to 70 teams. And it's a single elimination tournament until we get down to what we call the Final Four. And then eventually somebody wins the championship. And every year there are upsets and things you don't expect. And so we're going to do the same thing with 4 regions of 16 generals. And by general, I'm using that term loosely. It doesn't have to be someone who actually had a rank of general. It's anybody who was in command of troops in battle. And again, battle can be loose. For example, Dwight Eisenhower was never a general on the ground leading troops in combat, but he was in charge of an entire theater of one of the largest wars in human history. So don't worry about the MacArthur versus Washington thing. That's going to change here in a second. So let me explain to you how this is going to work. So in each of these 4 brackets, and the 4 brackets are North and South America is one bracket. Asia, Africa, Australia is one bracket. Europe pre-1700 is a bracket, and Europe post-1700 is a bracket. I've added a number of people that I think would probably end up on the list, or I've taken suggestions in the chat over the last couple of hours. And I've put together these lists, but I've left some blanks in each one of them to get your feedback into anybody we might add. So I've got 1 spot available in the North and South America bracket. So don't ask me where Hannibal is, because Hannibal would be in a different bracket. He's going to be in Africa. For the sake of evening things out, I've included Russia as part of the Asia, Africa, Australia bracket rather than Europe. So Geronimo, someone says, George Thomas, Hannibal's in Africa. Don't ask me about other brackets. Right now we're just going to talk about North and South America. So please keep the chat to who you think should be on this list. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to shuffle the list. So they're not going to be ranked like by who I think's best down to who I think the worst is. So it's going to create some interesting matchups. We might get like Julius Caesar and Hannibal in the first round, or not Hannibal, but we might get 2 like really high-ranking people that might end up in like the top 10 all time, and one of them might not even make it to the top 32, depending on how we vote on these. Arthur Curry, we could probably, that's actually not a bad idea. If we should put somebody for Canada. I like Arthur Curry, so we'll put him in there. Great World War I general for Canada. I am also willing to entertain if you think somebody on this list should be removed in favor of someone else. And then we'll start the voting. And what's going to happen is each one of these matchups, I'm going to put a poll in the chat, and you guys are going to be the ones to vote. So it's going to be 100% you. Once we finalize the top 16, it's out of my hands, and it's all about who you guys vote for. So no Charles Lee. Yeah, definitely no Charles Lee. Sorry. I'd put about 40 Civil War generals ahead of Charles Lee. Franz Sigel, no, not good. Woodrow Wilson never served in the military. So no, these are not majority American lists. This is the only list that's going to have Americans in it. So Nathaniel Green's on the list already. So I've got Ulysses S. Grant, Sitting Bull, Bernardo O'Higgins, Stonewall Jackson, Douglas MacArthur, Robert E. Lee, George S. Patton, Winfield Scott, William Tecumseh Sherman, Simon Bolivar, Nathaniel Green, George Washington, Jose de San Martin, Dwight Eisenhower, John J. Pershing, Arthur Curry. Yeah, this is just the first 16 out of 64, as I explained at the beginning. Oh, Santa Anna's not bad. Who would we remove in favor of Santa Anna, though? I like Benedict Arnold's not going to make this list, sorry. Guys, if it's not in a North and South American general, we're not talking about it right now. One thing at a time. We will get to Asia, Africa, Australia, Europe in future brackets. This is just North and South America. I don't think I could remove Winfield Scott, though. I got to have somebody from that time period. MacArthur, I can't remove him. He's one of the top generals, whether I like him or not. I feel like Santa Anna should be on here. I'm just trying to decide who I want to take out. I want to have Sitting Bull because I want to have at least one Native American in there. Sam Houston fought won one battle. I really don't feel like I can put him in there. Where's John Pope? Not on this list. Craig Masters, we've never even met. I can't really do your wedding if we don't meet. Che Guevara is not going on the list. Sorry, he was not a general. All right, I'm going to remove... Who am I going to remove? Honestly, Zach, thank you. Appreciate that. How dare I not include Braxton Bragg? Gonna remove Stonewall Jackson. And we'll put Santa Anna in here. All right, so now what I'm going to do, Eisenhower's already here. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit the shuffle button 5 times, and that's going to be the matchups, and then we're going to start voting. Okay. So our very first vote is going to be, and I'll zoom this in so you guys can see it a little better. Start a poll here. Here we go. We're going to do these pretty quickly. Because we've got to get through 64 matchups. Actually, more than that, but I guess it would be about 64. So we're going to vote pretty quickly on these, so we can move on to the next one in each case. So let's go ahead and hit save, and then what we do is we go here, and then we can actually start the tournament. We hit start tournament right here, and we'll give it a minute or two, and then we'll vote, and then we'll move on to the next one. I have seen the film 1917. Why would I put Trajan in a bracket of North and South American generals? So for those of you just joining us, there are 4 brackets, each with 16 generals in them. This is North and South America. There's a bracket for Africa, Asia, and Australia. And there are 2 brackets for Europe. One Europe pre-1700, one Europe post-1700. All right, like I said, we're going to do these pretty quick, so you're going to want to vote fairly quickly on these. All right, so this one went 69 to 31 in favor of Simón Bolívar. On to our next one. Ethan, thank you for that. This is totally up to you guys. You guys can vote however you want. I'm not putting any conditions on. So Bernardo O'Higgins, a South American general with a very not South American name, versus Blackjack John J. Pershing, who was the American commander, the commander of American Expeditionary Forces in World War I. and one of America's top 3 highest ranked generals of all time, along with George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant, who all have a rank that is higher than 5 stars. It's called General of the Armies of the United States. Well, Grant will have it if and when the president authorizes it. A bill was passed that authorizes the president to promote him. It hasn't actually happened yet. As a Chilean, O'Higgins was a terrible general, Andre says. I tried to include someone from everywhere, right? I didn't want this to be all U.S. generals. I didn't want this to be all generals from one place or another. So I tried to include different time periods and different generals just to mix it up a little bit. I'm not saying these are the 16 best American generals. O'Higgins loses simply because I don't know jack about him. Same here. I don't know a ton about him, and it looks like Pershing's going to overwhelmingly win this one. That's going to be 83-17. By the time we get to like the last 4 in each bracket, you guys will probably be very familiar with them. So we're on to another one that I think I'll have a pretty good idea of how it's going to go. George S. Patton. We all pretty well know who he is. Jose de San Martin is another South American general. So here, I tell you what, while you're voting, not that it matters a whole lot, but Jose de San Martin was a general in Argentina. He's also the protector of Peru. He's kind of one of the founding fathers of Argentina. I had a few people. He also fought in the Peninsular War against France during the European Wars, Napoleonic Wars. Do I think Patton would have become a 5-star? Not likely. I think he definitely would have been 5 stars if he could have stayed out of his own way in some of his comments and some of his actions and just stuck to the battlefield. All right. So that one's going to be Patton, 81, San Martin, 19. Like I said, the matchups are going to get a lot more interesting in the second round. You're going to have Simon Bolivar against John J. Pershing. And you're going to have Patton versus the winner of Santa Anna and Sherman. This one should be interesting. Greg, thank you for that. Yes, I am going to go to his house at some point in the near future. It's not... Oh, I didn't end the other poll. That would be why I can't start a new one. All right, here we go. We've got Sherman versus Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, Mexican general. So the winner will take on George S. Patton in the round of 32. Sherman, Ohio native. Yeah, he's from Lancaster, Ohio, which is down near Columbus. Sorry, George Thomas did not make this list. Keep in mind, folks, that my audience is about 60% American on this channel, so I expect the American generals to do better. Like the U.S. generals are going to do better compared to some of the non-U.S. More on militia. Where can you donate to take for me? There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can do it in Super Chat on here. You can support on Patreon. You can become a member. John Pope, will not be making this list. Grant stood by me when I was crazy, and I stood by him when he was drunk, and now we stand by each other always, yes. And we'll be talking a lot about Sherman in a couple of weeks. In 2 weeks, I'll be going to the Antietam. I just went to Antietam. We're going to the Shiloh battlefield. So that one's 66-34. That was a little closer than some of the others that we've had. All right. Winfield Scott versus Douglas MacArthur. This should be interesting. I'll be curious to see how this one goes. So Winfield Scott is a general in the Mexican War, pretty much wins the Mexican War. Is a brevet lieutenant general, commander-in-chief of the U.S. Army until the early stages of the American Civil War. I'm not a huge fan of MacArthur personally. Chocolate 32, you can choose on whatever criteria you want to use. This is totally a community vote here. He was a veteran of the War of 1812 as well. Just as MacArthur was a veteran of the First and Second World Wars, he was a brigadier general in the First World War and did, in fact, meet George S. Patton on the battlefield at one point in 1918. Haig will be in the European bracket. This is all North and South America right now. It is close, but it appears we're going to have a winner. We're going to do these votes pretty quickly. I don't have a huge opinion one way or the other on Joe Johnston, but Grant thought Johnston was the South's best general. Von Moltke, not the Moltke from World War I. He did not make it, but his uncle is going to be in the voting. All right, MacArthur wins 61-38. So far we're going to have Simon Bolivar versus John Pershing, George Patton versus Sherman. That'll be interesting. MacArthur will take on the winner of our Canadian option in the voting, Arthur Currie, very good Canadian general from the First World War. But unfortunately for him, he is up against Grant. I feel like I know how this one's going to go, but hey, you never know. Arthur Currie, very famously, you'll see in my video that'll be coming out in the next couple of days from the Battle of Passchendaele, very famously predicted that he would lose 16,000 men in the final assault on Passchendaele Ridge, and he was within 400 of guessing exactly right. It ended up being like 15,600 that he lost. Yeah, Currie had bad luck. Some of these matchups are just unfavorable. I feel like Currie could have beat some of these others. But I think we can end that poll now. That's going to be 88-11 in favor of Grant, who will take on Douglas MacArthur in the round of 32. All right, now we've got a very interesting matchup. We've got Eisenhower, who never actually led troops directly in the field, versus Nathaniel Greene, who is a Revolutionary War commander that George Washington thought extremely high of. Grant was almost never outnumbered, but he was indeed outnumbered by the Confederates during the Vicksburg campaign. He just did a better job of hitting them while they were separated. I almost added Nathan Bedford Forrest, but I didn't. Eisenhower was stateside during World War I. Grant became a full general in 1866, just after the Civil War. Is it going to be a U.S. sweep? It's possible. Like I said, because this is a primarily American audience on this channel. So Eisenhower wins 59-40 over Nathaniel Greene. There's a lot of places in the U.S. named after Greene, a lot of Greenvilles and Greene counties. And we got a family matchup on this last one. George Washington against his step-grandson-in-law. So Robert E. Lee was married to Mary Custis, who was George Washington's wife's great-granddaughter biologically. Now, Theodore Roosevelt never commanded more than a regiment, so he wouldn't go on this list. Lee was a much better tactician than Washington, absolutely. Oh, this one's going to be close. Yeah, I think if we're voting on generals, I feel like Lee's got to win this. Lee would destroy Washington in a battle. All right. That was a close one, the closest one that we had in round one. But Robert E. Lee moves on. All right. So there's our final 8 for the American bracket. We're ready to move on to the next round. And once we get a winner in this bracket, we'll move on to the other 3 brackets. So this will go on for a while here. So we're on to Simón Bolívar versus Pershing. Here we go. You can vote on whatever criteria you want to use. We said generals, but you can expand it to whatever you want. Harry Truman was never higher than a captain in the military. Lee would win the battle but lose the war. I think that's possible. Was Pershing doing the planning or was Marshall? That's a great question, Zach. Pershing, I think Pershing, like George Washington, was very good at recognizing talent in others. He's the one who puts George Marshall, who's on his staff, in a position to basically plan the war and kind of sets him on the trajectory that will put him as the American commander, basically chief of staff of the U.S. military during World War II. He was Ike's superior. But he also recognizes talent like Patton and puts Patton in position to succeed. But yeah, it looks like Bolivar's going to win this one, 61-39. I don't think I would disagree with that. Pershing... Oh, wait, what am I doing? That's backwards. Strictly speaking, as battlefield success goes, I think Bolivar has a greater track record for sure. All right, we're on to this one. This one's going to be interesting. George S. Patton versus William Tecumseh Sherman. Here we go. I'll be really curious to see how this one ends up. Napoleon and Wellington will be in the same bracket, so only one can make the Final Four. Most underrated Confederate general of the war besides Johnston? Probably, if we're going to say underrated, I would say Claiborne. Ooh, this is close. This is very close, but I think Sherman's going to win it. Sherman, 'cause burned the South. Sherman was the more influential tank. Yeah, they are both tanks. All right. Sherman wins it. So that one goes... How did that end up? 54-45. So it'll be Bolivar versus Sherman in one half of our Final Four for the America bracket. Here comes another really interesting one. We've got MacArthur versus Grant. MacArthur's father served under Grant in the Civil War at Missionary Ridge. Yeah, it looks like Grant's going to win this one. I I'm proud of you guys. Thank you for keeping my faith in your voting skills. All right, I think we can go ahead and end that one. That was a blowout. 83-16. So it'll be Grant. Oh, yeah. I see where this is going. All right, now we've got Eisenhower versus Lee. Setting up a potential matchup of Robert E. Lee versus Ulysses S. Grant in the regional semifinal. Eisenhower did speak highly of Lee. You're right. There's, I think, an interview on YouTube you can find of that. Just for the matchup, it has to be Lee, folks say. Down with the squirrel hater. All right. I'm going to wrap this one up. There we go. 57-42 in favor of Lee. So our final four are 3 American Civil War generals and Simon Bolivar. So none of the World War I or World War II generals made it to the final four here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom this out a little bit so we can see all of it. There can be only one. Here we go. Simon Bolivar versus William Tecumseh Sherman. South America versus North America. Bolivar's doing really well so far. Come on, Americans, you know in your hearts. Simone wins this one. The next one. Just to see Sherman versus Grant, someone said. All right, I think we've got a winner here. I don't see Sherman coming back from that. So our final, Simon Bolivar moves on to the final round over William Tecumseh Sherman. Oh, you know what time it is now, folks. It's time for Grant versus Lee. Don't let me down. There can be only one. Let's get ready to rumble. I feel like we've seen this matchup before, JD says. So I'm pretty excited. Just found out that on my trip to Gettysburg here in about a month, in addition to some old friends that I'll be seeing again, going to get to meet the author of the very first Civil War book I ever owned, which is William Frazanito, who I know my friend Gary Edelman is a huge fan of as well. So I'm excited about that. And also Susan Eisenhower, Ike's granddaughter. Going to get to meet her too. All right. Well done, folks. Well done. 81-19. Grant moves on to the final for the Americas. Grant does have many living descendants. In fact, I'm in the early stages of doing some research on a video where we're going to talk about living descendants of U.S. presidents. Some really interesting people out there. So MSB Hicks going to Gettysburg in April. So I'm going to be there as part of what's going on with the opening of a new museum in Gettysburg. So if you're going around that time, good chance you'll meet me. I'll probably mention opportunity for a meetup at some point. All right, here we go. This is the final round of the Americas. We have Simon Bolivar versus Ulysses S. Grant, and go. Schwarzkopf versus Hussein. All right, this one's close. Who would win this battle in real life? It's tough to say. I feel like Grant probably would if all things were equal, but then again, I don't know Bolivar as well. Peter, won't do a bathroom break, but there will be some time in there before we start voting because I'll be taking requests for the top 16 in the next one. All right, I think we can declare a winner. All right, moving on from the U.S. or the North and South America bracket. It is Ulysses S. Grant, 61-38. All right, so we'll save that. We're going to be doing a Final Four, so Grant moves on to the Final Four, where he will take on the winners of the other three brackets. All right, this one's going to be, actually, you know what? I think we're going to do Europe pre-1700 next. Now, I've got room for 4 more on this one. Couple of things. Number one, with Europe, I am not including Russia. Russia is going to be in the Asia bracket. So this is the rest of Europe. So I'm taking requests for who should fill out these other 4, and then we'll mix them all up. So let me read you who we have so far. Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Scipio Africanus, Gustavus Adolphus, John Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough, Jan III Sobieski of Poland, Eugene of Savoy, Maurice of Nassau, Stephen the Great, Charles Martel, Constantine the Great, and Flavius Belisarius. Someone said Pompey. We could do Pompey. Edward the Black Prince. Interesting. Khalid would not go in Europe. Oh boy, everybody's commenting on this one. Joan of Arc, no. Charlemagne, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'm seeing Hannibal. He's in Africa. Attila the Hun. A lot of comments here. Bernard Montgomery was not pre-1700. We could do Henry V. Seeing a lot of Agrippa. Napoleon's not pre-1700 either. Come on, guys. You got to know your basic timelines and geography here. All right, so I think we're going to add Pompey. Pompey Magnus. He's Roman. We'll go ahead and put Henry V in there from England. Derek Jeter. Thomas Fairfax is a possibility. Joan of Arc's not going to be. Not feeling Richard the Lionheart either. Belisarius is there. Attila the Hun. John Churchill's there. William the Conqueror, Alfred the Great, Robin Hood. All right, Charlemagne. We'll put Charlemagne in there. Got to have a Viking, someone said. So who would we put? Ivar the Boneless? I do like the idea of having some... Oh, Leif Erikson. Was he much of a general, though? Ooh, lots of comments on this one. Harold Hardrada. Mel Gibson's William Wallace. Chandragupta was not European. Come on, folks. Geography here. Genghis Khan was also not European. Frederick the Great was post-1700. Pre-1700. Europe. Come on, guys. All right. I just got to pick somebody just so we can kind of move on here. We'll go with Canute. All right. So I'm going to mix these up. And we're going to hit mix 5 times, and then we're going to see our matchups. Harold Godwinson didn't even, win much. He got killed in battle pretty early on. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so here are the matchups. We're going to have Canute the Great versus Belisarius. Stephen the Great versus Eugene of Savoy. Charlemagne versus Maurice of Nassau. Henry V against Charles Martel. John Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough versus Scipio Africanus. Constantine versus Pompey. Alexander versus Julius Caesar in the first round. And Gustavus Adolphus against Jan III Sobieski. Oh, man. That's crazy. All right, so we have to save and then hit start tournament. There we go. I'll go ahead and zoom this in a little bit. Canute the Great versus Belisarius. And it's okay if you don't know a lot about these. If you don't really know much about one or both, just don't vote and let the people who do. Because some people, like each of these different eras and locations is going to be in their wheelhouse in terms of historical interest. So that's okay if you don't. I would just say don't vote just to vote. Go ahead and leave it to the folks who feel like they know something about it. It's not really a 16 versus 1, though, William, because they're all randomly mixed up. Hannibal, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot. Hannibal's in Africa. Okay, Belisarius easily wins that one. 71-28. So yeah, I should probably remove the seeds because they aren't really seeds. There we go. Okay. On to the next vote, which is Stephen the Great versus Eugene of Savoy. Stephen the Great was he's Romanian, isn't he? No, Hungarian. So that's why, when you talk to people from Eastern Europe, he's always on the list of, so he was a Moldavia. So then he flees to Hungary and later to Wallachia. He was a contemporary of Vlad the Impaler. I put Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, in the pre-1700 because he lived most of his life pre-1700. Died in 1720. All right. Eugene of Savoy wins that one. 62-37. And like I said, the first round, you're going to have some folks maybe you're not as familiar with until we get to the later ones. I feel like I know how this one's going to go. Karl der Grosse, Charlemagne versus Maurice of Nassau. Patchwork Pictures. This particular bracket is done. We've still got 2 more brackets to go where we can add names. Napoleon is post 1700. All right, that one's a pretty easy one there. That's 87-12. All right, here we go. We move on to Henry V of England versus Charles the Hammer, Charles Martel. About 1,000 years between the two of them. Not quite 1,000 years. Landon, I had to use a dividing line somewhere, and as I was making the lists, initially I was going to go Napoleonic Wars to the present and then pre-Napoleonic Wars, but it was too heavily one-sided, so I found 1700 to be a better dividing line when I was putting the list together. Charles XII, I don't think is going to make the list, but we'll see. It is a tough draw for Henry. He is Charlemagne's grandfather. Varad, why would I include Indian generals in a European bracket? That one goes to Henry V. 57-42. So he'll take on Charlemagne instead of grandpa-grandson matchup. All right, here we go. So this is John Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough, versus Scipio Africanus. This is a tough matchup, too. Got an Englishman versus a Roman. Yeah, so for those just joining us, there are 4 separate brackets that will each have 16 generals in them. We already completed the North and South America bracket. Ulysses S. Grant won that one. This is Europe pre-1700. We will also have an Africa, Asia, Australia bracket and a Europe post-1700. And the winners of each of those 4 will go against each other. Scipio's winning this one big time. All right, tough matchup for Churchill, who I think probably deserved to do pretty well in this bracket, but just a tough matchup for him. Bauer, I'm showing you the bracket on the screen right now. We're making these brackets ourselves, so there's no website to put them on. John Sharp, thank you for that. Which I would most want to see, if Garfield had lived, if Lincoln had lived. If Lincoln had lived, I think out of those 3. Okay, we are on to Constantine versus Pompey. A Roman matchup. If Pompey gets a head start here, he might pull this off. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Yeah, Pompey Magnus is not taking it easy. Sorry. All right, I think we've had enough voting to know how this one's going. 65-34 for Constantine. And here we go. This is a first-round matchup that potentially could have been the whole thing. I mean, you could make an argument for these two being in the championship, right? Alexander the Great versus Julius Caesar. I mean, any conversation about the greatest general of all time is going to include both of these guys. But only one can move on to the round of 32. The Premier League third round FA Cup tie. All right, looks like this one's going to go to Alexander. Man, if it hadn't been for that matchup, I could have seen Julius Caesar going really, really far in this thing. But Alexander moves on. All right, so here we have our last matchup of the first round of pre-1700s Europe. Gustavus Adolphus versus Jan III Sobieski of Poland. He was a consul of Rome. The Lion from the North versus the Winged Hussars. Yep. I don't think the Winged Hussars are going to be arriving today. Not that either one of these guys has probably got a chance to win in the next round anyway. All right, we can wrap that one up, I think. That's 74 to 20, or 73 to 26 on that one. And so we'll take a look at what the next round is. So in the next round, we're going to have Belisarius versus Eugene of Savoy, Charlemagne versus Henry V, Scipio Africanus versus Constantine the Great, Alexander the Great versus Gustavus Adolphus. So here we go. Next round. Belisarius versus Eugene of Savoy. And go. If you're just joining us, there are 4 brackets of 16 teams. You guys are doing all the voting. And you will have some say in who goes into the brackets because I haven't completely filled them out. Next, we're going to have Africa, Asia, which will include Russia, and Australia. There's one Australian general in there. All right, easy win for Belisarius. I feel like this is going to be pretty heavy in favor of the ancient side of things. 75-24. Got to click on the right thing here. Charlemagne versus Henry V. I have a feeling I know how this one's going to go, but I've been surprised before. I have not seen Extra History's Justinian yet. Cara del Grossa. English fanboys go ree. How does it feel knowing that hundreds of people will tune in to listen to you when speak whenever you start a live stream? It's awesome, and honestly, it's like you guys are like my very large group of friends who I can talk to about stuff that we all are interested in. Before I started this channel, I didn't have a lot of friends that I hung out with that are really into history. I've got a couple, so it's nice. It's nice, and I've met a lot of amazing people, even fellow YouTubers and things like that. So Charlemagne easily wins 74-25. He moves on to the final 4 of this bracket, where he will take on Belisarius. All right, here we go. Another Roman matchup, where we get Scipio Africanus versus Constantine the Great. 2 different parts of Roman history. Charles XII, I had room for him. No one suggested him. Charlemagne destroys Henry with dysentery. Ouch. This one's really, really close. Holy cow. This is the closest vote we've had so far. Well, Scipio's starting to pull ahead. Does Constantine have a chance to come back? If I could learn more about another era of history, what would it be? I'd like to know more about the Napoleonic Wars than I do. All right. We're going to call this one 51-48 for Scipio. Not that I expect either one of these guys to get past the next round anyway. I feel like I know where this one's going, but we do have to play it out. So now we have Alexander versus Gustavus Adolphus. Can we associate Constantine with Keanu Reeves? I did just read somewhere Keanu Reeves is going to be in Yellowstone. Magician Sapphire, thank you for that. He does have a new series on John Brown. I will wait. My policy with reactions, except for oversimplified, because everybody watches oversimplified videos right away, is that I don't do reactions to brand new videos. If it's a series like on Extra History, I'll wait till the whole series is complete. And other, because I want to give the original content creator a chance for everyone to have seen the original before I go in and do a reaction to it, just out of respect for the work that they've done. Oversimplified, I don't wait, just because I know even within 24 hours, the chances are most people have already seen the oversimplified video. Yeah, we'll probably do some more JJ McCulloch videos. I enjoyed his. All right, Alexander wins that one, 81-19. That was actually closer than I thought it would be. 81-18 it ends up. All right, our final four in the pre-1700 Europe. We have Belisarius versus Charlemagne, Scipio versus Alexander. So 2 Romans and 2 non-Romans. Gustavus has guns, yes. All right, so Belisarius versus Charlemagne. I honestly have no idea who's going to win this one. History YouTubers March Madness. Ooh, that would be interesting. I don't know. I feel uncomfortable with that because it's easy to vote on dead people, but I'd be asking you guys to judge living people, many of whom I really like. Yes, Belisarius was Roman. That's why I said there's 2 Romans, 2 non-Romans. Nightfall, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm using this. The website I'm using is actually called brackethq.com, and you can create your own brackets. Yeah, but Holy Roman Empire wasn't Roman. It was German. All right, let's go ahead and end that one. Charlemagne wins and moves on to the championship of this bracket. 59-40. He will take on the winner of Scipio and Alexander. Hello in Taiwan. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like once Alexander beat Julius Caesar, I feel like this one was kind of inevitable. Tyler, appreciate that. We will do some more Historia Civilis for sure. I have not seen Simon Whistler's episode on Yorktown. And I will be, once this stream is over, I'm actually going to make, the stream will be live and people can go back and watch it. But I'm going to make a video, a separate video, just showing how all of this went for people who don't want to watch in real time with me doing all the reaction and talking and answering questions and stuff like that. So there will be a separate video with that. Just kind of showing the highlights of what we did. All right, Charlemagne versus Alexander the Great for the championship of this bracket. Giorgio, thank you for that. Can I react to Ancient America's videos? I'll have to check that out. Charlemagne and Alexander. Do I think Caesar is overrated? I do not. I think he's one of the greatest generals of all time. Who's my favorite, Charles XII or Gustavus Adolphus? That's a tough one. Favorite, Charles XII. That doesn't mean I think he was better. All right, I think we can call the winner of this bracket. Alexander wins it 76-23. Once he beat Caesar, that was inevitable. Okay, so that bracket is done. So we'll save that. We've got 2 more brackets and we'll have our final 4. So we've completed North and South America and Europe pre-1700. We're going to move on now to this one I've got completely filled out, but I am willing to entertain ideas of who I should add to this list and who I should remove. So this is Africa, Asia, Australia, and for the purposes of this vote, I have included Russia as part of Asia rather than part of Europe. So let me read to you who I have on here, and you tell me who's missing, and if so, who should I replace on this list. So we have Genghis Khan, Hannibal, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Takeda Shingen, Timur, Subutai, and I may pronounce some of these wrong, Oda Nobunaga, Han Xin of China, Nader Shah, who I'm not familiar with, but I believe was a Persian, like modern-day Iran, Alexander Suvorov, Cyrus the Great, Georgy Zhukov, Henry Chauvel, who is a Australian general, very highly rated Australian general, Shaka Zulu from Africa, Tutmos III of the Egyptians, and Chandragupta Maurya. Chow Chow, I think, is that how his name is pronounced? You're right, he should be in that list. I think I had him written down and somehow I didn't include him. And I had, who else did I have that I ended up not including? Saladin and Mehmed II were possibilities. King David, we just don't know anything about him historically beyond the Bible, so it's hard to put him in there. We know he existed. That's about it. Admiral Yi, we're not doing admirals. Oh, boy, this one's tough. Saladin, who would I... And Mehmed II, I think, probably do need to be in there. I feel like as much as it's nice to have an Australian representing the list, I don't think he's going anywhere. So we'll put Saladin in there instead of him. Batu Khan was another one I had on my list. Peter the Great. Richard the Lionheart's English, so he would have been in the last group. Same with Erwin Rommel isn't this bracket either. This is pre-1700. No, this is all of Africa, period. Mehmed II's the other one that I think probably I need to put in here. Yeah, the problem is 16 slots and there's too many. You know what? Nothing that says we have to only have 16. We can add a few more and just have like a play-in bracket kind of thing. Attila the Hun, we could add him. We'll just add a couple of extra rounds, I guess, to this one. Probably could have done this with other ones too, but... Subutai is there. I have Cyrus the Great. He's on there. I think the other one that I had that we could add would be Batu Khan. Okay. I think that's going to be pretty good for this list. I don't think anybody else that's being mentioned has a real shot at moving on anyway. So we're going to mix this up 5 times like I've done with the other ones. And then we can start voting. Yeah, Attila probably would be European. You're right. Tsar Nicholas. Hirohito. No, he didn't lead troops in the field. We'll add Sun Tzu. I spelled it wrong, though. Wasn't looking at what I was typing. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. I'm going to mix it up 5 times, so we have no idea what the matchups are going to be. Last time we ended up with Caesar and Alexander against each other in the first round. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right off the bat, we are going to get some interesting matchups on this one. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we've got. We're going to go very first round. Doesn't matter if they had a rank or not. If they actually led troops in the field, then it's okay. But I feel like I know where this one's going to go anyway. So very first vote is going to be Sun Tzu versus Hannibal. Shaka Zulu's on this list. Yeah, I will do some more genealogy videos of monarchs and presidents for sure. All right, that one's a pretty easy vote. Hannibal moves on, 71-28. Oh, I didn't start the tournament. My bad. We have to actually hit start tournament. There we go. Okay, we've got two other kind of play-in games here. Play-in matchups we have to do. We have Nader Shah, who was a Persian, kind of modern-day Iran, versus Genghis Khan. Again, feels like this one's an obvious one, but we'll let you guys do the voting. Hannibal brought elephants to a knife fight. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see the part we're working on. Yeah, I think we can probably go ahead and end that one right now. That was our biggest blowout we've ever had. Genghis Khan moves on, 97-2. All right, next matchup, Cyrus the Great versus Khalid ibn al-Walid, who probably is in that conversation for greatest generals of all time. I have not seen Useful Charts Roosevelt Family Tree video because I'll probably do a reaction to it at some point. When he dunked on the major superpowers of the day. Nice. Yeah, I think Khalid should definitely win this one. 68-32. That was actually a little closer than I would have expected it to be. All right, that's all of our... Oh, no, we've got one... Oh, wow. This is a big matchup right off the bat. Chow Chow versus Saladin. This bracket is pretty stacked. Some of these are going to be more stacked than others. We didn't forget El Cid. Only like 2 people mentioned him, so other people got in ahead of him. Saladin. Chow Chow was a Chinese general. This one's super close, but I'm not sure he's going to get past Saladin. Cao Cao? Okay, good to know. I wasn't sure how it was pronounced. Jake, I thank you for that. And I've done a video on from the site of the attack by the 1st Minnesota volunteers. And I've actually also done a video using maps talking about that fight. So I've got a couple of 1st Minnesota videos up already. All right, that was a super close one. But Saladin wins 50-49. Okay, so we're on to our top 16 now on this one. And we're going to get right off the bat, we're going to get Nobunaga versus Hannibal. So again, what I'll encourage people to do is, if you aren't familiar with one or both of the people we're voting on, just refrain from voting on that particular one and wait until there are ones that you know. Yeah, I feel like Hannibal's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this category. Okay, 86 or 85-14 on that one for Hannibal. And again, these are not, in fact, I'm going to go remove the seed numbers on these because they're not really seeded. It was random how we ended up doing the matchups. So, Timur versus Alexander Suvorov. This one should be interesting. A-Team Hannibal. Suvorov's a Russian general from the 7 Years' War, I believe. Timur is also known as Tamerlane, yeah. Belisarius was in the previous vote, the pre-1700 Europe vote bracket. This one's close, but it looks like Tamerlane's going to win. Okay. 61-38. In favor of Timur. All right, that puts Hannibal versus Timur. We're going to have Batu Khan versus Georgy Zhukov. By the way, if you haven't seen it, the portrayal of Zhukov by Jason Isaacs in Death of Stalin is not to be missed. It's fantastic. It's very over the top. Medic! Exactly. Oh my gosh. If you like dark humor at all, it's so good. I absolutely love that movie. There's the scene when you first kind of get the big reveal of Zhukov. Jason Isaacs walks in and they do like this slow-mo as he reveals his medals, and he actually has far fewer medals on than he would have had in real life. Yeah, I feel like Zhukov probably wins this one. Yeah, Steve Buscemi plays. Who's he play? He plays the guy that ends up taking over the Soviet Union, Khrushchev. Wrong room. Go kill him, will you? All right, Zhukov wins 75-24. Feel like he probably doesn't get past the next round, though. But we'll see. Genghis Khan. Sorry, my Indian followers. I feel like your representation is going to be short-lived here. Genghis Khan versus Chandragupta. Death of Stalin should be available somewhere because I watched it. I just don't remember who. I've seen Hamilton quite a few times, and I did a whole 2-hour live stream talking about what it got right and what it got wrong. Yes, I am Sam Nixon, the master of Indian history. And that one was probably an easy vote for everybody, 90-9. So So he has now won 97-2 and 90-9 in his first 2 rounds. All right. Egypt represent Thutmose III. Up against, this is a tough one for him, I'm afraid. Khalid did conquer Egypt, but not at the time when Thutmose III was there. Julius Caesar didn't make it out of the first round. I have seen Gunpowder with Kit Harington. Harington's actually a descendant of one of those guys, of the guy that he played. All right, Khalid wins easily as expected. He's got some fire music too. Different guy, I think. All right, so he wins that one 76-23. That brings us to a matchup. I think I know how this one's going to go, but Shaka Zulu versus Subutai. This is also the bracket where I'm most likely to mispronounce names, so you're welcome to correct me as needed. So far, our 2 winners of our previous 2 brackets, if you're just joining us, are Ulysses S. Grant won the North and South America bracket against Simon Bolivar, and Alexander the Great won the Europe pre-1700 bracket. This is really close. I'm kind of surprised it's close. Don't, JD. Yeah, you've got a little experience with people getting mad at you for mispronouncing names. This one's way closer than it should be. Subutai's in that conversation for top generals ever. And it's 50-50 right now. How is Shaka not winning? How is Shaka even in this, is what I'm saying. Dang. All right, it's 50-50. And I'm going to end it here in just a second. We'll see who actually wins. All right, it just went 51-49. 50-49, Subutai, just barely makes it out of that one. We're counting Russia as Asia for the purposes of this, just to even things out, because there were so many Europeans already. I wanted to try and get some of the Russians, get the Russians out of Europe and get them into this bracket. So I don't think I am able to remove votes. Sorry. Or I would have probably chose Caesar over Alexander. All right, here we go. Takeda Shingen versus Han Shin. Got some Eastern Asian vote going on here. More votes coming in from Florida. We've got some hanging chads we got to wait for. Some of you guys aren't old enough to remember what a hanging chad is. If you don't know one or both, just abstain from voting on that particular one. Nothing wrong with that. Caesar didn't make it out of the first round. He lost in the very first matchup in his bracket. How's it like living in Ohio? No complaints. The weather's not great. I am aware of the Ohio memes. My kids tell me all about them. All right. We're going to wrap that one up right there. I think we've got a clear winner. Alexander the Great won the pre-1700 Europe bracket. So that one goes 57-42. And we're on to another really interesting matchup here. Saladin versus Mehmed II. Got a Middle East matchup here. It's snowing today. It's kind of cold outside. Who beat Caesar in the first round? Alexander the Great. He had a tough matchup in the first round. He probably would have beat just about anybody else in that bracket. Most famous person from Ohio. I feel like there's a lot of people that get that title before LeBron. I mean, the guys who invented the airplane, the first man to walk on the moon, the first American to orbit the Earth, 7 presidents. Thomas Edison is the Ohioan. George Clooney's from Kentucky, isn't he? I feel like Neil Armstrong might have it. Jack Nicklaus is Ohio, yep. When it comes to flight, nobody beats us, right? We have the Wright brothers, we have Neil Armstrong, we have the America's #1 flying ace of World War I in Eddie Rickenbacker. We've got John Glenn. Jim Lovell was from Ohio, from Apollo 13. All right, we can wrap this one up. Dave Grohl is from the same town I was born in, Warren. I haven't been to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, but I need to get there. All right, Saladin wins. Okay, we are on to the final. We still have 8 left in this bracket. No mention of Drew Carey, no. All right, we're on to Hannibal versus Tamerlane. You have Eddie Rickenbacker's autographed biography. That is very cool. Our 2 airports in Columbus are named after John Glenn and Eddie Rickenbacker. My opinion on the West Wing, I loved West Wing. My family my kids don't watch too many of them. My wife watches some here and there. All right, I feel like this one's a pretty easy vote. We can go ahead and wrap that one up. Warner Brothers are from right here in the Youngstown area. They actually started the company Warner Brothers here in Youngstown. Hannibal 82-17. So he makes the Final Four where he will take on, I feel like I know how this one's going to go because he's been winning every vote so far by a lot. Georgy Zhukov versus, some of you are correcting me and telling me it's Genghis Khan. Most people say Genghis Khan. Jalilov, I don't even see him. So I'm not sure who you're talking about. Amira WDR, I don't see the person you're saying is spamming. I pronounce it Johnny. Even winter can't save Georgi now. Or Georgi. I think we can wrap that one up. So another big win, but the closest vote that he's had so far. Only 79% this time. So he'll go on to face Hannibal. That's pretty hardcore. This is turning out to be a pretty solid group. This one's going to be interesting. Would be interesting if it came down to Subotai versus Khan, wouldn't it? Khalid's going to be one of those ones that would be in the conversation for greatest generals of all time, I think. All right, I think that one is a wrap. 58-41. He'll move on to the final four of this bracket, where he will take on the winner of Takeda Shingen and Saladin. At least this one didn't happen in the first round. Yeah, we've had some interesting first round matchups. Do I think Robert E. Lee would have made a good president? I don't know. He never really had any experience in that realm of politics, so it's hard to say. Some generals make really good presidents, others don't. All right, I think this one's a wrap as well. So that one goes to Saladin. Somebody made a comment earlier, if they're in a movie, they're more likely to win. That's probably fair. All right, so here's our final four. This is going to be a really interesting vote right here. I feel like the winner of this could be the winner of the whole thing. At least this bracket. I have no idea who's going to win this one. No, Robert E. Lee was better as a tactician on a battlefield. He was not great as a strategist, or at least we don't really have anything to go on to know whether he was a great strategist. I think Grant has a clear track record of being a great strategist out of those two. Roderick Davis, thank you for that. From Guatemala. My niece was born in Guatemala. My wife's sister adopted Amira from Guatemala. I've done a couple of resyndicated videos recently. This one is close. All right, I think we're going to wrap this one in just a second. A lot of votes on this one. I'll give it another minute or so. Not sure MacArthur would have made a great president. I don't know if I agree with that. Would I ever join the military? I actually looked into becoming a military chaplain at one point. My wife wasn't crazy about the idea, though. It was at the time when we were at war and she didn't want me getting deployed overseas. All right. Khan moves on, where he will face the winner of Khalid ibn al-Walid and Saladin. Greg, thank you. Appreciate that. Jacob Raleigh, best general from World War I. We're going to be voting on that in just a minute because there's a bunch of World War I generals in the next category. We shall see. Yeah, I think Khalid's going to take this one. It's going to set up an interesting final. All right, I think we can wrap this one up. Yeah, Europe post 1700s will be the last one. So that goes Khalid 67 to 32. Let me zoom out now. And here's our final. I'm just going to say it the way most people do, Genghis Khan, because there's about 30 different ways people pronounce it. Versus Khalid. Here we go. Khan! Who's my favorite general of all time? Julius Caesar, probably. Caesar and Napoleon would be my top two. Who is in the next category, by the way? The next bracket. Favorite Star Trek? 4. The one where they come back to Earth in present day. They travel in time. Oh, I like Grant, but he's not my favorite general. All right. Should have known from the very first vote how this one was going to go. 65-34. So he will move on to face Grant and Alexander in the final 4. Roderick, you're from Northern Virginia. You're just here to see fam. Very cool. Okay, that leaves us with one category left, which will be a really interesting one. Europe, 18th century to the present. Now, like the other ones, I've got room for a few more, and I'm willing to even add brackets if we need to. Here's who we have so far. Caesar didn't even make it out of the first round, let alone Agrippa wasn't even in it. But so we have Napoleon Bonaparte. We have Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington. We have Frederick the Great, Heinz Guderian, Bernard Montgomery, Philippe Pétain, Giuseppe Garibaldi, Ferdinand Foch, Louis Nicolas Davout, Erich Ludendorff, Gert von Rundstedt, Douglas Haig, Helmut von Moltke the Elder, Michel Ney. Who else needs to be in this one? Manstein. I thought I had him on the list. Oh, Edmund Allenby is one we're going to add to this group too. Rommel. Everybody wants to have Rommel in there. Marshal Ney is here. He's number 14 on this list. John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, was in our pre-1700 vote. Got knocked out in the first round. MacArthur was in the Americas list. Paul von Hindenburg, we can add him. Eric Falkenhayn, I think out of the, I don't know, we'll see. Oh, Blücher, that's probably a good one to add. What was his first name? Was it Paul? Oh, no, it was not. Gebhardt. Okay. Let's go ahead and add him in there. Napoleonic Wars General. A lot of Germans representing already in this one. Lannes, yeah, for Marshal Jean Lannes. Another Napoleonic marshal makes it in. Frederick the Great's there. If you're talking to Oliver Cromwell, he would have been pre-1700. Von Moltke is there. Simon Bolivar was in the Americas. This is Europe post-1700. Yeah, Manstein, I'll add him in there. That might be about all of it. Marshal Foch is there, number 8. Would Charles, oh boy. I just got a random warning about something there. Everything's okay. I guess he's Karl the 12th technically. Yeah, I guess he would be post 1700, even though he was born right at the end there. We'll add him in there. Carolus Rex. Montgomery's there. He's number 5. I think that's probably enough for this one. We've got a lot of Germans already. I feel like I don't want to add any more Germans. Petan's there too. Okay. Suvorov was in the Asia bracket because we did the Russians in the Asian bracket. Patton's an American. He's not European. Garibaldi's he was pre-1700 European. Or no, he's in this one. Giuseppe Garibaldi's number 7. Okay. We're going to do what we did for all the other ones. We're going to mix it up 5 times. Never know who you're going to get in these matchups this way. And I got to remove the seeds because these are not seeded in any way. And then we got to hit start tournament. There we go. All right. I mean, I feel like this is all academic. I feel like I know who's going to win this one, but we'll see what happens. We start with a couple of Germans taking each other on here. There's a lot of Germans in this one. Paul von Hindenburg, World War I general, versus a World War II general for the Germans. Von Rudenstedt. Here we go. Breeze, thank you for that. So many French Revolutionary Napoleonic War generals could fit here. Yeah. We have quite a few of those too. If they aren't fighting others, they're fighting each other. That's right, Ozai. All right, I think that one's a easy win for Hindenburg. 74-25. He will move on to take on another German general, Blücher, from the Napoleonic Wars. Now we've got 2 Frenchmen taking each other on. Philippe Pétain. Now, we are not voting on what he did in World War II. This is all about his performance in World War I as a general. Versus Marshal Davout, one of Napoleon's marshals. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to view Pétain through the lens of what happened in World War II. More like detained. All right, that one's a piece of cake. Davout wins 73-26. So we have 1 win for a World War I general and 1 loss so far. Davout will go on to take on Carolus Rex. Oh, another interesting German matchup. This time 2 World War II generals. Tommy Obermiller, thank you for that, but go Buckeyes all day. Erich von Manstein. Feel like I know who's going to win this one. I feel like Rommel's overrated too, but he's going to do well in this vote. I think Pétain's probably underrated. Who's the worst general in history? Man, where do you even start with that? All right, Rommel moves on. 69-30. Ah. Checking my messages and stuff. It's been a while since I've connected with the outside world. Just make sure everything's okay. Okay, anyway. So Erwin Rommel moves on to face Napoleon Bonaparte. The winner now of Edmund Allenby versus Giuseppe Garibaldi will take on Douglas Haig in the next round. So, potential matchup of two World War I generals. Again, if you aren't familiar with one or the other, just abstain from the voting. Haig shouldn't be in this conversation. That's fair. Yeah, I personally, well, I'll leave my own opinions out of it. I don't want to color the voting too much, but I don't see how any of these people beat Napoleon personally. But all right, Garibaldi easily wins that one. Our Italian representation. 67-32. Allenby's a solid general that not a lot of people know about, though. Rommel is the Stonewall Jackson of World War II. That's probably a good way of describing it. All right, so Garibaldi will go on to face Haig. All right, this is an interesting matchup. We've got, I feel like I know how this one's going to go. But Ferdinand Foch, French World War I general, versus the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley. Who's a great general with a humiliating defeat? That's a good question. Napoleon had a few. Yeah, this is Foch was the Eisenhower of World War I. Yeah, Foch was the commander-in-chief. He was the Eisenhower of World War I. He was the overall commander on the Western Front at the end of World War I. 88-11 for Wellington. I feel like that was a no-brainer for most folks. Oh, actually, we kind of skipped ahead there a little bit. We're doing this. Here's an interesting matchup. A couple of German generals. Ludendorff versus von Moltke the Elder. If Waterloo never happened, nobody would know who Wellington is. I don't know if that's true. Wellington, most of his success comes before Waterloo. He's most known for Waterloo, but if Waterloo didn't happen, I feel like he would just be most known for something else. His Spanish campaign was fantastic. World War I is going to be tough just because of the nature of that war. There isn't a lot of tactics going on, there's no traditional kind of using your brains to outflank the guy and that kind of thing. It's much more of a slugfest. But that one was pretty close. Moltke's going to win though. 56-43. Okay, so we are on to the next round now. We're going to have Blücher versus Hindenburg, another German matchup. We've got World War I versus the Napoleonic Wars. So Blücher, speaking of Waterloo, commands the Prussian forces at Waterloo. I bet Blücher turns up late here, too. Versus a blimp, not fair. I'm surprised Hindenburg's winning this one. I really am. It's fair to say Blücher did win Waterloo because if his army doesn't show up, I think Napoleon wins that battle. I don't think it changes the outcome of the war, but he wins that battle. Little surprised by this one. But it's going to be Hindenburg moving on. Who will win the Premier League? I'd love to see Arsenal win it. I don't know if they will. 52-47 in favor of Hindenburg. Hindenburg moves on to face the winner of Michel Ney, one of Napoleon's marshals, versus Bernard Montgomery. This will be interesting. Thoughts on Mbappe? He's my son's favorite player. He's a great player. I'm a Browns fan. Married to a Steelers fan. Wandering, no, we've done generals all the way back as far as history goes. This is just the post-1700s Europe category. It looks like Monty's going to win this one. So far, for those just joining us, we have done 3 of the 4 brackets. This is the 4th bracket. This is Europe 1700 to the present. And the winners of the other 3 brackets were Grant, who won North and South America. Alexander the Great won pre-1700 Europe. And Genghis Khan won the Asia, Australia, Africa bracket. So what was that one was 55-44 for Monty. All right, on to the next one. We've got Carolus Rex, Karl XII of Sweden, versus Marshal Davout. Some might argue Napoleon's best marshal. Golden Toaster, I tried breaking it down a bunch of different ways. I made a big list of European generals, and that cutoff point was the place where it was a most even list. Wood, yeah, I've got quite a collection myself. Landon, that is totally up to you how you want to vote on them. I don't know that Napoleon 1796 versus 1812 are different generals. I think the circumstances are different. All right, looks like Carolus Rex may have been chosen by heaven, but he was not chosen by this crowd. Davout wins, 58-41. All right, I feel like I know how this one's going, but Napoleon Bonaparte enters the scene for the first time. And he gets to take on Erwin Rommel. Rommel, hold my beer. Yeah, I think Charles XII was a little too reckless. Gustavus Adolphus was in the previous bracket. This one's going to be easy. The Corsican Ogre wins. Gave Rommel a pity vote. Yeah, he's out. 88-11, Napoleon wins. He moves on to take on one of his own marshals, Davout, in the next round. All right, I feel like I know how this one's going to go too, but Douglas Haig, who was the British Expeditionary Forces commander starting in 1916, or 1915 maybe it is, in World War I. He takes over for French. Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck did not make this list. A few people suggested him, but not as many as suggested the others. Rommel was better than Napoleon in the desert. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I couldn't in good conscience vote for Haig in this one. We'll do an admiral ranking at some point for sure. He did move his drinks cabinet 6 inches closer to Berlin. Ouch. Tough but fair. Okay. Garibaldi wins 70-29 and moves on to face Wellington. All right, that brings us a little France versus Germany action here. One of Napoleon's marshals versus a World War II general, Hans Guderian. The Chad Marshall lands. Marin Anguish, thank you. I think he's probably a little bit overhated, but I think he earns some of it. I have a hard time forgiving Haig for Passchendaele. His generals, it's not like Haig couldn't have known that that was an ill-advised attack. His generals were very aware of it. Does Dave Dravecky still live in Youngstown? I do not know, but I don't think so. If he does, I'm not aware of it. Okay, Hans Guderian moves on. 54-45. That brings us to another German matchup. A lot of Germans in this category. Helmuth von Moltke the Elder versus Frederick the Great. Friedrich der Grosse. Dave Dravecky's a really cool story. I have his book somewhere. My high school history teacher, who also was my distance coach, got me his book called When You Can't Come Back for graduation. I was trying to get a scholarship for track and cross country and had a severe knee injury my senior year that I think probably cost me the chance of getting a really good scholarship. And he got me that book because Dave Dravecky very famously broke his pitching arm and then ended up getting cancer and having the arm amputated. No surprise here. Yeah, Frederick wins and then celebrates with a good flute play. 76-23. Frederick the Great moves on. And he will take on Heinz Guderian. So we've got in the final 8, Paul von Hindenburg, Bernard Montgomery. We've got Davout versus Napoleon, Garibaldi and Wellington, Guderian, and Frederick the Great. So still a pretty heavy German representation. I forget the actual term for it, but basically the cartilage had disappeared in my knees and my bones were rubbing up against each other and they got really swollen and like the slightest movement caused me just tremendous pain. But it did eventually come back. All right, Paul von Hindenburg versus Bernard Montgomery. Julius Caesar was in the Europe pre-1700 and got knocked out in the first round. This is a close vote. Did not expect Paul von Hindenburg to make the Final Four in this category, but there he is, punching far above his weight, yeah. Grant was in the North and South America category. And he won that bracket. Who KO'd Caesar? Alexander the Great in the first round. It was a very unfortunate matchup for Caesar. Because it's all, it was just random how they got matched up. All right, this one's 50-50. Hindenburg and Montgomery. Interesting. I agree. I mean, Caesar might have been, for me, the winner of this entire thing. Or maybe Napoleon, but it's not how the community saw it. If it ties, I think it doesn't actually technically tie. If it's 50-50, there's still probably a numerical winner. So I'm going to hit end in just a second here. And we're going to see who wins it. Montgomery, 50-49. He moves on to take on the winner of Napoleon versus one of his marshals. Napoleon and Davout. I do not have the final say. This is all up to you guys. Can we do one about bad generals? That might be interesting. Actually, the funny thing was, I was planning on this being about U.S. presidents, but then I saw my friend Mr. Beat was doing one on presidents, so I decided to change it up and do generals instead. Sorry, Davout, you're cool, but Hindenburg's out, so no, he did not get a surprise win. All right, I feel like we can wrap that one up right now. 87-12. It's going to be Napoleon versus Bernard Montgomery. Now we're on to Garibaldi versus Wellington. This may come down to Napoleon and Wellington, and that'll be fascinating if it does. Yeah, the four winners will go up against each other at the end. British Monarch tournament would be interesting, yeah. Garibaldi for memes. Yeah, sorry, Garibaldi's tournament comes to an end right here. I think we can wrap that one up. Big win for Wellington. He does have a capital named after him. In New Zealand. All right, we got a German matchup here. Our last remaining Germans. Heinz Guderian versus Frederick the Great. Probably doesn't hurt that I just did a series on Frederick the Great, probably helping him do well. Well, Caesar and Napoleon, Caesar knew when he won enough, but you have to remember, Caesar was not in the same position Napoleon was. Caesar wasn't a dictator when he was winning those battles. He only became the dictator after he won all those battles. I feel like the circumstances were different. Do I prefer Christopher or Chris? I prefer Chris. My mom and my cousin call me Christopher. That's about it. All right, there's another easy win. Frederick the Great moves on 80-19, setting up a showdown with Wellington. All right, I feel like I have been called Topher. I have a few people who call me that. I feel like this one's going to be pretty one-sided, but you never know. Big C. So, Chris, when will we see Gettysburg? I'm going to be in Gettysburg in about a month. Hey, funny thing, Topher Grace, the actor, and Ashton Kutcher, the actor who were in that 70s show together, both actually named Christopher, because Ashton Kutcher's first name is Christopher. Actually, his family calls him Chris. I think Ed Sheeran's middle name's Christopher. When and where am I going back to Europe? Normandy. A couple months. All right, I think we can wrap that one up. Christopher Columbus, yeah. 89-10. Napoleon moves on to the championship for a potential showdown with the Duke of Wellington. How many countries have I been to? Give me a second. When I enter this in, I will count them for you because I'm not sure off the top of my head. Okay, Frederick the Great versus Wellington. So let's see. Countries I've been to, obviously United States, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Belize, Honduras, the Bahamas. Depends on, do we count England and Scotland as separate countries? If we do, that's 2 more. France is 10. Germany, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Belgium. 14 countries I've been to. How could someone with the name The Great lose? Well, it depends on who gave him the name. None of the greats made the final except Alexander. Frederick the Great is going to move on to face Napoleon. No Wellington-Napoleon matchup today. We don't get Waterloo. 56-43. I'm surprised only because I thought people would want to have the Waterloo matchup. Waterloo 2 Electric Boogaloo is canceled. Cries in British. No British representation in the final. All right, Napoleon. It's the Battle of Leipzig. I'm hoping to get to Leipzig later this year. I know there's not much to see as far as the battlefield goes. But we'll see the monument there. Friedrich der Grosse versus Napoleon. Hey, those Italians who are disappointed Garibaldi didn't make the final. I mean, technically Napoleon's family is Italian, so there you go. Jack the Ripper, yeah, I want to go back to England and actually do a video from the sites of the murders and some of the other associated sites with all of that. I would love to do a reenactment at some point, Landon, yes. It's definitely on my list of things I want to do. History theorists, yeah, Lancaster, PA, you can see Buchanan's grave. Drink at the 10 Bells Pub. Yeah, I want to do that for sure. All right, here we go. Napoleon wins. That gets us our final 4. For those just joining, I will actually be doing this whole video will be live on the channel, as with all streams, but I'm actually going to go and make a separate video where I just kind of show the results of all of this without all of the kind of chats and waiting for the votes and everything. Kind of a condensed version of that. So, all right. So we have completed that one. So let's save that. So now we have to create a new bracket. I'm trying to remember how to do that. Oh, I think I go back right here. All right. So all of those are complete now. So we're going to do one last vote. I got to create a new bracket for this. And then we're going to randomize it as we did with the others. No, not yet. I got to go right here. Here we go. Ulysses S. Grant. Napoleon Bonaparte. Genghis Khan. And Alexander the Great are your final 4. Now, Grant has no chance. No, I think that's probably fair to say. Okay. Will I visit Wales? Yes. And Wrexham, I'm actually talking to a friend who's Welsh. We mean Ulysses L, not Grant. Ulysses L. Yeah, I do want to get to a Wrexham game, hopefully this fall when they're in League 2. I'm hoping. Okay. Let's randomize this 5 times. All right. So we get, as our final 4, Let's remove the seeds again like we did before. There's our final four. Feel like this is a pretty one-sided matchup. I don't think Grant was going to beat anybody on this list, but that's okay. You grew up near Wrexham? I've heard that from others, that Wrexham is not necessarily a real nice place to visit. I've never been to Put-in Bay. F in the chat for Grant. I am going to do an Admiral one at some point. All right, 80-19. Alexander moves on to the championship, where he will face who? Here we go. This one's going to be interesting. I know how I feel about it. Fighter pilot bracket. Interesting. Hey, at least an Ohio general made the Final Four. I'm happy. I don't think Grant was going to beat any of these other three, so I don't think the seed mattered a whole lot. He was like the 12 seed that makes the Final Four. Yeah, that's fair. All right, I think we can wrap this one up. No, I don't think Grant would have beat Napoleon. Okay, so that one goes 73-26 in favor of Napoleon, which sets up our championship. Alexander the Great versus Napoleon. And yeah, we actually could do a vote for the bronze medal there, although I feel like I know who would win that too. This actually is not too far off of how I expected it to go, only I thought it would be Julius Caesar versus Napoleon, but Alexander beat Caesar, so. Lauren, we're not talking about better guns, though. I mean, if that's the case, then any 20th century general would have beaten Napoleon. We're talking about performance of a man, not what technology he had, because otherwise neither one of these guys would be on the list. ABBA versus Iron Maiden. I feel like I'm satisfied with this. I'm not disappointed by the result. I have not been to where Shawshank Redemption is filmed. It's about 2 hours from me, and my daughter really wants to go, so we're going to get there at some point. All right, I think we can wrap this one up. Here's your winner. 61-38 for Napoleon. So that's your winner, Napoleon Bonaparte, as chosen by all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you guys so much to everyone who donated and has been supporting the channel. I am going to do like a condensed version of this to upload. And tomorrow's video is back to the American Civil War. We're going to be going back to Warhawk and talking about the Battle of Fort Donelson as we build up to my visit to the Shiloh battlefield here in 2 weeks. As I mentioned earlier, also going to Gettysburg in about a month. Going to get a chance to meet one of my favorite Civil War authors, a guy named William Frazanito. Also looks like I'm going to get to meet General Eisenhower's granddaughter, Susan, who's going to be there. And some other friends will be there as well, but I don't want to give anything away. But you would definitely have seen some of them in my videos before. And I've definitely reacted to their channels before. So probably will announce some kind of a meetup if I can while I'm in Gettysburg. The Shiloh meetup is Friday, what day is that? March 31st? Yeah, March 31st, 1 o'clock at the Visitor Center. So I'll post something about that again real soon. Thank you guys. We'll do it again soon. Thanks for watching.